Hello students and welcome to my channel. In this video, we will learn and understand the chapter The Shepherd's Treasure. Chapter 3 of Class 6 Supplementary book A Pact with the Sun. The Shepherd's Treasure is an Iranian folk tale. A folk tale is a story which passes on from generation to generation. What is treasure? Treasure is a collection of valuable things. It can be money, it can be jewelry, it can be gems, it can be property, or anything valuable. But here, the shepherd had a different kind of treasure. What was that treasure? Let's see in the story, The Shepherd's Treasure. In a village in Iran, there once lived a shepherd. Who is a shepherd? A person who tends and rears sheep. That means who takes care of sheep. Iran is a country in Western Asia. Its capital is Tehran. Now, this shepherd was very poor and he did not even have a small cottage of his own. Cottage means a small house. So, he did not even own a small house. He had never been to school or learned to read and write because there were very few schools in those days. In those days, the number of schools were very less. So, he didn't go to school. This shepherd was poor and uneducated, but he was very wise. He understood people's sorrow and troubles and helped them face their problem with courage and common sense. He used to understand people's problem and he used to tell them to face those problems with courage and using their common sense. And people used to come him for his advice. And soon he became famous for his wisdom. Wisdom means intelligence and friendly nature. He was very friendly also. Now the king of the country also heard about him and he thought of meeting this person. Disguised as a shepherd and riding on a mule. Disguise means having changed one's appearance in order to conceal one's identity. So if someone changes his appearance, his looks, in order to hide his identity, that is called disguised. And riding on a mule. Mule is an offspring of a male donkey and female horse, something between donkey and horse. So disguised as a shepherd and riding on a mule, the king of the country one day came to the shepherd's cave to visit him, to see how wise he is. As soon as the shepherd saw that a traveler was coming towards his cave, he rose to welcome him. Rose means he stood up to welcome him. And he took that tired traveler inside his cave and gave him water to drink and shared his own meager meal. Meager means very small quantity. He already had a very small quantity of food that also he shared with the traveler. Now the king rested in this cave for the whole night and he was greatly impressed. He was pleased by the shepherd hospitality. Hospitality is friendly and warm reception, friendly treatment, and his wise conversation. The king was really impressed with this person. Although the king was tired, he decided to depart. Depart means to move away from someone, to go away from someone. So the king decided to go away the next morning. And he told the shepherd, "Many thanks for your kindness to poor traveler. I have a long way to go. Permit me to leave." So the king asked the permission to leave. Now the shepherd looked straight into the king's eyes and said, "Thank you, your majesty, for paying me the compliment of a visit." Compliment means appreciation, a good remark. So the shepherd thanked the king, calling him your majesty. That means the shepherd had recognized that the traveler was none other than king. Now the king was astonished. Astonished means surprised, as well as pleased. Pleased means happy. The king was surprised and happy, and he said he indeed is a very wise person. And the king thought to himself, I need to keep people like him to work for me. Indeed is a word that we use to emphasize a statement. The king appointed this humble shepherd as governor of a district. Humble is someone who is modest, who is not arrogant. Now, although he rose to power and dignity, this shepherd, he rose to power and dignity. Dignity means respect. He became powerful and he got respect also. But the shepherd remained humble as ever. People love and honored the shepherd, this person, for his wisdom, sympathy and goodness. Sympathy means to understand others' situation. So people used to love him for his wisdom, his sympathy and his goodness. This person was kind and just to all. He treated everyone equally. and his fame, he became famous as a fair and wise governor. His fame soon spread throughout the country. Now the governor of other provinces means other state, they grew terribly means very much jealous of the shepherd, and they began to talk to the king against him. So they began to fill the king's ears against the shepherd. They used to tell the king that this person is very dishonest and he keeps for himself a part of money that he collects as tax from other people. And they also said that why did he carry an iron chest with him always? Iron chest is a small iron box. They said perhaps maybe he is carrying that iron chest because he keeps the treasure in that iron chest that he had collected. So this is how they filled the ears of the king, telling him that he probably keeps treasure in that iron chest. After all, they said mockingly. Mockingly means making fun of the shepherd. They said after all, he was an ordinary shepherd and he cannot behave in any better way. Now at first the king did not pay attention to such kind of reports, but how long could he ignore these governors' endless stories about the shepherd? And one thing was certain that the king discovered means found out. He discovered one thing, that this governor did carry an iron chest with him all the time. So one day the governor was summoned. Summoned means called to the palace. Now the governor came riding on his camel, and to everyone's delight, everyone's happiness, those who were against the shepherd. To everyone's happiness, the iron chest was there, fastened securely. Fastened means tied. It was tied on the back of the camel. Now seeing this, the king got very angry and he thundered. Thundered is an expression of showing anger. He shouted, "Why do you always carry that iron chest with you? What does it contain?" Hearing this, the governor smiled and he asked his servant to bring the iron chest. Now people were waiting eagerly to see treasure coming out of the chest and the shepherd to be caught by the king. But how great was their astonishment! They were greatly surprised, and even the king himself was surprised when the chest was opened. There was no silver or gold or jewel in it, but an old blanket that came out of that iron chest. Holding this proudly, the shepherd said to the king, "This, my dear master, is my only treasure. I always carry it with me. So what was in the chest? There was an old blanket. That was the shepherd's treasure." Now the king was surprised and he said, "Why do you carry such an ordinary blanket with you? You are a governor of a district." To which the shepherd replied with dignity, "The blanket is my oldest friend. It will protect me if at any time your majesty should wish to take away my new cloaks." What are cloaks? A sleeveless outdoor overgarment that hangs loosely from the shoulder. The royal people wear these cloaks. These are costly clothes. So that the shepherd meant that if you ever thought of taking away all my costly clothes, this blanket will protect me. Now the king was very pleased, and other jealous governor were very embarrassed. Embarrassed means a feeling of shame and awkwardness on the wise reply of this wise man. Now they came to know, they indeed knew that the shepherd was indeed the humblest and wisest man in the whole land. And that very day, the king made him the governor of a much bigger district. So the king rewarded him by making him the governor of a much bigger district. What is the moral that we get from the story? That one should never forget his roots. Wealth and power comes and goes, but real treasure is that which has been with us through our thick and thins. Thick and thins means good and bad times. Now let's see some question answers. The shepherd hadn't been to school because there were very few schools in those days. Who visited the shepherd one day and why? The king of the country visited the shepherd one day because he had heard a lot about his wisdom and he wanted to see it himself. Why did the other governors grow jealous of the shepherd? The other governors grew jealous of the shepherd because he was loved and honored for his wisdom, sympathy and goodness, and his fame as a fair and wise governor spread throughout the country. Why was the new governor called to the palace? The new governor was called to the palace because the king could no longer ignore the complaints of the shepherd from other governors, and he wanted to inquire the reason for him carrying an iron chest. Why was everyone delighted to see the iron chest on the camel's back? Everyone was delighted to see the iron chest because they thought now the shepherd would be caught and they would be proved correct in front of the king. What did the iron chest contain? It contained an old blanket. Why did the shepherd always carry it? He considered the iron chest his actual treasure and true friend. He knew that wealth and fame would come and go, but his actual treasure will always remain with him. Hence, he always carried it. Is it an example of shepherd's humility or wisdom or both? So according to me, it is example of both his wisdom and humility. What is humility? Humility is being humble, considering yourself, keeping yourself down to earth, not considering yourself above all. How did the king reward the new governor? The king rewarded the new governor, by making him the governor of a much bigger province that very day. So students, this was the chapter, the folk tale, the shepherd's treasure. I hope you have liked and understood it. Thank you for listening. I will see you in my next video. Till then, bye bye. Take care.